Give me a glimmer of hope again. Save me from all my wandering. If I've been looking in all the wrong places, would you turn me back around again?
Welcome to HopeCasts, where our true stories brighten your day by providing insight and encouragement. I invite you to listen as my husband, Dr. Ken Brown, shares one of his amazing personal experiences that will inspire and stir your soul. Even in the challenges of life's darkest moments, you can always find a glimmer of hope through the love of God. So settle in, open your heart, and let's journey together through the power of storytelling.
Follow the bubbles. No cartoons for me from the time I was 5 years old. My father and I enjoyed sitting together on our old couch watching television programs about ocean adventures. For me, it all began with Sea Hunt, an exciting TV show filmed in black and white with many underwater action sequences of actual scuba diving. The hero, Mike Nelson, played by Lloyd Bridges, was a retired U.S. diver who was hired to prevent disaster on the seven seas by using his advanced knowledge of scuba to solve seemingly impossible situations beneath the surface that no one else would attempt. Then there was the movie and the riveting hit television series Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, where an ultra-advanced nuclear-powered submarine commanded by Admiral Nelson was able to save the world from destruction in the depths of the ocean. The heroes of the Florida-based TV program Flipper were two boys, 15-year-old Sandy and his brother, 10-year-old Bud, who coincidentally was my exact age. They lovingly adopted a bottlenose dolphin, their loyal and intelligent friend Flipper, who always seemed to rescue everyone from calamity, just in the nick of time. The show is packed with plenty of powerboats, diving scenes, dangerous sharks, shipwrecks, hijackings, savage storms, and survival at sea. The show's catchy song, "They Call Him Flipper," is still stuck in some endless track in my brain. Can't you still hear it? But my very favorite program was The Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau, where this intrepid explorer, at the helm of his famous ship, the Calypso, sailed all around the world to scuba dive and film exotic marine fish of all sorts of sizes and shapes in the 5 oceans of the world. I was completely captivated by Cousteau's photographic visions of the breathtaking beauty of the living reefs, the multitude of the brilliantly covered fish with such variety of sizes and shapes, fiery underwater volcanoes, murky, foreboding canyons, and dark trenches beyond exploration in the depths of the sea, forests of kelp, magnificent blue whales, speeding silhouettes of sharks, and strange species of shellfish. My imagination was mesmerized by the mystery of the sea, by the vibrant life of the ocean. I dreamed of snorkeling and scuba diving in the Caribbean, playing with dolphins, escaping from sharks, spearfishing, and exploring the underseas world. Most Saturday mornings, our family tradition was for all of us to visit the local libraries, and I devoured every book I could find on sea life, scuba, and oceanography. And for me, the best part of our summer, our family camping trips, was when it included an ocean visit to look for shells in some sandy beach such as Cape Hatteras, the Bay of Fundy, Jersey Shore, or Cavendish Beach. I was completely captivated by the power of the ocean, waves crashing into some rocky coast like Bar Harbor, Cabot Trail, or Peggy's Cove, and I always felt so sad returning to my normal landlocked life in Toronto. During my boring French class, I would constantly practice holding my breath by hyperventilating and timing myself while daydreaming that I was somehow finding treasure on some shipwrecked Spanish galleon. No wonder French was my worst subject. I knew my teachers noticed my odd behavior and my complete lack of focus. Perhaps it was due to some sort of brain damage caused by depriving myself of oxygen, self-induced hypoxia. But I did not care. There was no wonder that at 16 years of age, I became extremely excited when the Royal Canadian Air Cadets made me an offer of free scuba diving lessons and certification as part of my training. It was no sacrifice for me to take the long bus ride over to Downsview Air Force Base, where they had an Olympic-sized indoor pool for 8 consecutive weeks. On Saturday mornings during April and May of 1970, our instructors started to teach us the basics of scuba, self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. But they started us off with rigorous swimming lessons. The training was to ensure our comfort, safety, and ability in the water by first making us all earn a bronze level of swimming and the Red Cross lifeguarding certification. Our instructor, who was a former Navy diver, reminded me so much of my hero, Mike Nilsson, just being like an older Lloyd Bridges. So I carefully listened to him repeatedly preach about the golden rule of scuba. Breathe normally, never hold your breath, and always, always, always breathe out when you are ascending to prevent air embolism, which basically is when the expanding air inside of you literally explodes your lungs. He hammered into us that to prevent this, you are never ever to ascend faster than our bubbles, to always follow our bubbles. He also said never dive alone, stay with your diving buddy, ascend and descend slowly, make safety stops, also always equalize your inner ear before diving deeper, never go deeper than you can comfortably equalize, and vigilantly monitor your depth, your time underwater, and your pressure. He taught that for every 10 meters of descent, the water pressure doubles. And at depths greater than 100 feet, this could lead to nitrogen narcosis, which can impair both cognitive and motor functioning. Eventually, oxygen becomes toxic to our brains. Our teacher drilled into us about decompression sickness, also known as the bends, when nitrogen bubbles form in the body during a rapid ascent in violation due to the diver's decompression table. DCS can lead to severe pain, paralysis, and even death if sufficient decompression stops are not made to release the nitrogen from the blood. Lectures included theory and demonstration of the masks and the snorkels and the fins, the buoyancy compensator vests, regulators, tanks, hoses, entering and leaving the water with 70 pounds of equipment, and proper calculation and use of the weight belts so that you could float within the water without rising or sinking. Finally, it came the first moment when we were put on the scuba gear, jumped into the pool, and I actually started breathing while under the water. It was so unreal. And I was amazed to be hovering just above the bottom of that pool, looking up at the surface, totally comfortable, breathing air from that regulator and tank with 10 feet of water above me. One of the tests that we had to pass was to first throw our tank and our regulator and our mask, snorkels, and fins wrapped around the weight belt into the deep end of the pool. Then we were to dive down, hook the weight belt under our feet, then turn on the air supply from the tank and place the regulator in our mouths. Swing the tanks onto our back, then put on all of our equipment including clearing our masks underwater. In the arrogance and stupidity of my youth, and after all my French class breath control, when it came to my turn, I dove to the bottom of the pool and put on my weight belt, swung the tanks on, placed the regulator in my mouth, put on all of my flippers and my mask, and then leisurely reached behind me to turn on my tank as the very last step. When I emerged from the pool, successfully clad in scuba gear, my instructor, who I was trying to impress, did not seem quite so happy with me. He asked, "Why did you wait for well over a minute before you turned on your tank?" I proudly told him that it was easy for me, but he maintained that my actions compromised my safety and that it was not what he wanted me to do. All I could do was apologize, and I felt bad that my impulsive behavior disappointed him. When I found out that the Royal Canadian Air Cadets had scheduled the required open water dive for our official certification the first weekend of June that year, it was like I was finally starting the rest of my life. I could begin to live my underwater dream. My instructor and 3 students drove 3.5 hours north to the clearest water in Canada, home to the Fathom 5 National Marine Park. The small fishing town of Tobermory, where Georgian Bay pours into the Great Lake Huron, had 80 to 100 feet of visibility in crystal clear but frigid waters. These waters were home to over 24 wrecks over the past 2 centuries. Flower pot islands and numerous lighthouses, the wave-carved grotto cave, and Canada's famous underwater habitation, Sublimos, and Fathom 5 Park was recognized as one of the world's best diving sites and the 8th wonder of Canada. That sunny morning, we gathered at the 75-foot-tall Big Tub Lighthouse, built in 1885 to protect and guide vessels navigating through the Big Tug Harbor. Our teacher gave us incredibly detailed instructions, reviewed the diving rules and protocol, and gave us wetsuits to put on. That was my very first time putting on that stretchy and tight-fitting outfit, but it was imperative equipment to prevent life-threatening hypothermia in those 48-degree waters. Our first dive began from that lighthouse in crystal clear and calm water, with a 300-yard swim out to the sweepstakes, which was a 119-foot-long 2-masted schooner that had sunk on August 23, 1885, and now was lying in a shallow 20 feet of water. Then we continued to swim underwater another 100 feet over to view the remains of the city of Grand Rapids, which was a luxury passenger steamer that was sunk in October 1905. It was astounding to be traveling under the water and visit these wrecks, so well preserved by the cold and slightly acidic water due to the limestone. The second dive that day was on the tugs, which were the remains of 4 steam-powered tugboats, and they were sunk in about 40 feet of water. I found out that if I cleared the pressure in my ears and went deeper, slowly, that there was functionally no difference between the depths of the 2 dives. Didn't matter it was shallow or deep. It was a beautiful experience at the surface because the lake was so serene with a deep blue color and it reflected a cloudless sky. And before we returned home, we made our last and final qualification dive at that same lighthouse point the next day. But what a dramatic change in weather from the previous dives. It was a cold and very windy morning with the light obscured by the low and heavy clouds that were rolling across the sky. Cresting waves were high and rough and choppy and were crashing into the craggy coast. Our instructor wisely contemplated calling off the dive, but for the sake of our group earning their open water rating, he decided to allow us newbies to go into that freezing black water. Closely following our leader, we went straight down that sheer cliff wall, straight down into the dark shadows to the maximum of 60 feet allowed for novice divers, which was also a necessary step in licensing us. The instructor was carefully looking at his depth gauge on his regulator and motioned for us to stop. Then he pointed at some crayfish in the rocks. And then within a few short minutes, he abruptly pointed to the surface and slowly began his ascent, and everyone followed him. But me, I'm ashamed to say, the arrogant rebel me, the immature boy man living in a fantasy world me, the risk-taking immortal that thought he could do anything and still live forever me. That me did not follow the instructor's rules, although I had said that I respected him so much. Ha! I knew from the information in the park display that this wall dive went down to a maximum of 75 feet, then leveled off. And I already knew that there was no need for decompression for a bottom time of less than 10 minutes at that depth. So instead of going up, I swam lower for 30 seconds till I reached the bottom shelf and immediately started to slowly swim back up to join the others. But I did not see the group. After a minute or more of swimming in the same direction, I realized that I had become disoriented and confused as I swam along the wall of that underwater vertical cliff in that opaque water. Darkness surrounded me, and there was no light above, and everything looked the same in every direction. With neutral buoyancy, I was hovering emotionlessly in the water on the rock face, and not automatically ascending. Suddenly, irrational panic seized me as I began to doubt that I'd even been swimming in the right bearing to the surface. It was so dark in every direction, and I was lost. Which way was up? And that is when I remembered my instructor's rule. Follow the bubbles. But the tiny air foam bubbles coming out of my regulator were slowly floating at a 90 degrees direction to the very direction that I had been traveling to get to the surface. For a moment, I began to think that possibly a current in the water was sucking them along the rocks. But I forced myself to calm down, suspend my belief and my own flawed judgment. And I started to follow the bubbles as my instructor had taught me. I stayed beneath these small round gobulets of air and did not overtake them, but started to pursue them as the path to my dry world. And gradually the bubbles became larger, started to shimmer and fill with light, and even joined together. And they started to be dance with iridescent colors. And it was then with a tremendous sigh of relief that I saw the translucent light of the surface above and kept swimming up, breathing out as my teacher had taught me. When I finally burst into that gloomy day, I was about 100 feet away from my group, and they had all been frantically calling for me for about 3 or 4 minutes, searching for me through the cacophony of wind and whitecaps. They were reassured when I yelled back, "Over here!" I lied and blamed it on the current waves and darkness, but I never told them or anyone what I had done. Although I felt so convicted and stupid, I knew that I deliberately violated several cardinal rules of diving, and my conceit, arrogance, and obsessional thinking, it could have destroyed me. If I had not followed the bubbles as my instructor had taught me, then I may have very well died that day. The Bible says in Proverbs 14:12 that there is a way that seems right to a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. God's rules are found in the Bible, but we often live singing Frank Sinatra's song in our head, "I did it my way," and become so lost in the darkness because of our self-deception, our fantasies, and our pride. So remember this rule whenever you feel inconsolably brokenhearted, abandoned, and alone. Our Heavenly Father knows exactly where you are and loves you so much. In your painful crisis, cry out desperate prayers to the Lord. And just like the smallest bubble, will always find its way up through the water to the surface. God hears even your faintest whispers and all of your supplications because they ascend right into the loving heart of God. Turn your heart to the Almighty One who created you, but also died so that you could live. Call out to Jesus, and the Lord will always make a way for you to come home to him, despite the dire circumstances of your life. You will not drown in your sin or perish in the dark. We have a Savior, and his name is Jesus, and he loves you. So pray, call out to him, and he will be found, and he will save you. Follow the bubbles, follow the rules, and turn your heart to God, and he will save you.
Thank you for tuning into HopeCasts for inspiring stories that will touch your heart. If today's story encouraged you, then please subscribe to our channel and visit us at hopecasts.org to learn more. You can also watch the video version of this story and many more from Dr. Brown on our HopeCasts, YouTube, or listen on our Spotify, Apple, or Amazon Music podcasts. Until next time, keep holding on to hope, and please share these stories with someone who really needs encouragement. May God bless you.
I've been searching and I've been seeking. It seems like you're nowhere to be found, and I'd do anything just to see you. If I close my eyes, will I see you now? 'Cause I know faith holds in what can't be seen, but my hope feels like a distant dream. Give me a glimmer of hope again. Save me from all my wandering. If I've been looking in all the wrong places, would you turn me back around?